In the last 15 minutes, Trump, European Union has been brutal to the US. In the last hour, Trump threatens to tax EU cars. In the last 2 hours, Trump threatens tax on EU cars. Trump threatens tax on European autos if EU retaliates over steel. In the last 4 hours, Trump threatens retaliatory tax on EU cars. Iran-EU talks, initiative for peace. A withdrawal in Trump's favor. Trump threatens to retaliate EU decision regarding steel, aluminium. In the last 6 hours, Trump threatens EU auto industry over blocs. Trade war retaliation. Trump threatens tax on European cars after EU slams steel tariff. EU bound to protect JCPOA against Trump. Trump tells EU to expect new tax after their tariff threat. US President threatens tax on cars imported from EU in angry tweet. EU bid to counter US move. Trump threatens to tax European cars if EU imposes tariffs. Trump threatens to tax EU cars after global backlash to steel tariffs. In the last 8 hours, Donald Trump threatens EU with tariffs on cars in trade war warning. Trump threatens EU with auto tariffs. EU proposes tariffs on Harley-Davidson motorcycles. Trump fires up trade war rhetoric, threatens EU with tax on European cars. Trump threatens tax on EU cars over tariff retaliation. Yesterday, EU targets US firms with measures for trade war. Trump's planned steel, aluminum tariffs spark anger in EU. Trump opens door to trade war as EU threatens iconic.
EU threatens retaliation to Trump's trade war measures.
Bourbon and jeans. As Trump calls for trade war, EU says it will hit back at Trump with tariffs on Levi's and bourbon. EU seeks to hit back at €3 billion of US exports from bourbon to jeans. EU promises retaliation after US tariffs announcement. Trump opens door to trade war as EU threatens iconic US brands. EU weighs tariffs on bourbon, blue jeans, Harley-Davidson. EU targets Harley-Davidson, Levi's in Trump trade war. Small window of opportunity to avoid Trump trade war. EU may target $3.5 billion of US imports for trade retaliation. EU leaders threaten to impose tariffs after Trump trade war talk. EU to respond firmly to Trump tariffs. The EU is planning a $3.5 billion trade war retaliation against the US. EU ready for trade showdown with US. European industry raises alarm bells. EU warns of retaliatory measures. EU could respond next week to US tariffs as Trump eyes easy victory. EU, our countermeasures against Trump are ready. Triple tantrum, stocks sink. GOP.
Trump claims easy win. EC responds to the U.S. restrictions on steel and aluminum affecting the EU. Nations threaten retaliation for Trump's steel tariffs plan. EU pledges countermeasures on Trump's new tariffs. EU promises retaliation against Trump's steel tariffs. EU promises prompt, firm response. Trade war feared as EU and China to retaliate on U.S. steel. Germany urges determined EU response to U.S. steel tariffs. EU, Canada vow retaliation over U.S. steel.
For tax cuts. EU promises firm response to US steel tariffs. EU threatens firm reaction to US steel import restrictions. The latest. EU promises retaliation to Trump tariff plan. EU says it will impose trade countermeasures against US goods.